This is the master. Okay, cool. Yeah. Hello, folks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much once again for showing up. Uh, I'm just going to ask all the candidates if they could come up to the stage and sit where there's a tag. And everyone else outside, please take a seat. Feel free to grab any form of snacks, any form of drinks, and we should be starting shortly. Awesome. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Simba Chunda, and I serve as the president of the St. Mary's University Student Association. And it's a pleasure to have you all at the 2024 HRM Mayoral Debate here at St. Mary's University. As we gather here today, let us acknowledge that we're located in the Mi'kmaq and ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I know we've heard this phrase many times, but what does it really mean? Land acknowledgement is not just something you check off a list when planning an event, it's an acknowledgement of deep history of this land. And the least we can do is to honor the land for those that were here before us. It is a responsibility we carry to recognize the injustices of the past and the first step in respecting the indigenous peoples who have carried and cared for this land for countless generations. Land acknowledgement is important for all of us, but it carries an even greater weight for us as student leaders. As you sit here at this debate, you embody the trust placed in you by your community. You are a leader from whom people learn from. You serve as a source of inspiration and guidance. And this is why we as leaders bear an even deeper responsibility to initiate conversations and engage in meaningful discussions about the history of this land. So the next time you give a land acknowledgement, take the time to reflect. Are you reciting it because you think you're supposed to? Or are you delivering it because you think you're supposed to? Or are you delivering it as a recognition of the land's history and the custodians that cared for it? Are you investing the time to learn about Indigenous history and how you can contribute to truth and reconciliation? I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you that are here today. We're especially grateful for the 5 candidates joining us on stage: Andy Fillmore, Jim Hoskins, Pam Lovelace, Waye Mason, and Zoran Jovic. Can we all give them a round of applause? Thank you for stepping up and dedicating your time and energy to taking place and taking the chance to be here at our HRM Mayoral Debate. It makes and it takes immense commitment and vision to pursue leadership roles like this. And we are fortunate to have candidates like you who deeply care about the future of our region. Halifax Regional Municipality is a beautiful place to live, filled with natural wonders and vibrant, diverse communities. But more than ever, it needs strong and stable leadership. The role of mayor is crucial in guiding us through challenges and shaping the future of this region for the better. It's about ensuring that everyone from our students to our families have the opportunity to thrive in a city that is sustainable, inclusive, and forward thinking. Since this debate is happening in a university setting, I'd like to emphasize the importance of students in this election. Students are the backbone of our future. Your voices matter, and your votes have the power to influence the direction of the city. The choices we take and the choices that we will make today will shape the city you inherit tomorrow. I encourage you to take an active role in this election and engage with all the issues that affect you. Now, before we proceed, I would like to have some housekeeping rules. This is an awesome chance for all the community individuals to come here and see what our candidates have to say. Another thing is that we have some beverages at the back. So we have some coffee, some drinks, and some snacks as well. The washrooms are located outside, right next to the building as well. I'd like to introduce our moderators for tonight, Dr. Emma McClure. Dr. Emma McClure is an assistant professor in the Department of Philosophy, where they also serve as an undergraduate coordinator for the philosophy major and the new law and ethics major. They research the ethics of conversation informed by feminism, disability studies, and critical race theory, and Sydney Carruthers. Sydney is a second-year pre-law student here at St. Mary's University, majoring in political science and law and ethics. She's the vice president of the Debate Society and has been debating for years now. They will be guiding us through what I'm sure will be a lovely insight into an amazing discussion. Dr. McClure and Sydney, the stage is yours. Thank you so much, and please enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Emma McClure. I will be moderating the event tonight. At 4:30 p.m., the debate will commence. I will ask the first question and call upon the first speaker alphabetically by last name to start their 5-minute speech. We are also allowing for points of interest at this debate, or also called a point of information. A point of information is an opportunity for a candidate who is not speaking to interrupt the speaker to ask a brief question. To give a POI, the candidate stands up, raising their arm with their palm facing the sky. Go waiter. A POI, a point of information, must be in a question form and should not exceed 7 to 10 seconds. The POI should be related to what the speaker is currently talking about. Speakers can turn down POIs by motioning to sit down if you don't want to take the question, or can decide to take the POI by stopping their speech and answering. If a POI is taking too long to ask, exceeding the 7 to 10 seconds, I may interrupt you and ask you to sit down or ask you to rephrase as a question. If the POI is unprofessional in the sense that it is attacking your opponent or is off topic in their speech, hopefully this won't be an issue, then I may also interrupt you and ask you to sit down. So my job isn't to interrupt you. And then Sydney Carruthers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney. So I'm going to be timing the debate tonight. I'll be sitting here at the front. When their time starts, they have 5 minutes. I'll know their time starts. Any of you, you can give me a nod, a thumbs up, whatever. Just let me know that you're ready to start, and I'll start the 5 minutes. When the time starts, exactly at 5 minutes, I'll put up a green card here. This represents the start of the 5 minutes. When there's 2 minutes left in the candidate's speech, I'll put up a yellow card to represent 2 minutes left. When there's 1 minute left, I'll put up a red card to represent that they're in their final minute. And within their last 10 seconds, I'll put my hands up and I'll count down the 10 seconds like so. At the end of their 5 minutes, exactly at 5 minutes, I'll put up the white card, and this will signal for Dr. McClure as well as the candidates that their 5 minutes is up and they cannot exceed these 5 minutes, hence my 10 seconds on my fingers to make it really clear you're approaching the end of your time. Okay, thank you.
Are we starting right off?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so we will get started. I will ask the first questions and then we'll go in order, trying out the POI. Everyone ready? Okay. Oh yeah, did you want to start 1 minute intros? Okay, so yeah, we'll go in order for that as well, starting with Andy Fillmore. Is your mic?
It has to be pushed to the right. It will turn green.
Technical difficulties.
Got it, Simba. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to make time for all of us. And thank you so much to SMUSA for what they have done going back. I know they've been planning this for a couple of months now, going back to conversations in the summertime. So I'm really glad to see it all come to fruition. My name is Andy Fillmore. I'm a candidate for mayor in this year's federal election. I've been the member of parliament here in Halifax for the past 9 years, and that followed a 25-year career in city planning, largely here in Halifax. When I look around our communities now, the communities that comprise HRM, I see the challenges of homelessness, of the cost of housing, the shortage of housing, of congestion, of a transit system that's struggling to provide the services that citizens need. I look around at the cost of living in terms of the tax rate. When I think about the job skills that are required to address these challenges, 10 years as a parliamentarian and 25 years as a city planner seem to map extremely well, and that's my proposition to each of you.
Thank you. And Jim. Whatever you want to use your 1 minute for.
Hi, my name is Jim Hoskins. I was born and raised in Halifax. I'm a retired 36-year police officer. I've worked with the city all my life, adult life. I also did community work with Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada, working with youth, boys and girls up to the age of 16, 17, and been in their homes and actually thought we could make a difference. And I think we have in helping young people move forward with their lives. I've been in their homes at the best of times as a police officer, at the worst of times as a police officer, as a high school football coach, the same. So I've done my people work immensely. I'm running for mayor because I think I have common sense leadership that we drastically need. I don't like some of the decisions that have been made by the past council. Then again, I don't like, or I do like some that they have made. So I'm here to give you my 2 cents worth tonight and maybe do a little bit of dialogue with my fellow candidates.
Thank you. And Zoran.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zoran. I don't have a last name, same as Madonna, Prince, and all those popular people. And the only reason why I'm saying this because it's hard to pronounce, but if you remember NBA player Nikola Jokic, MVP 2 times a year, we are not related. So I basically want to run for a mayor for one reason, because we need pragmatism. We have a whole bunch of those old leaders that really didn't do too much for us. Last 12 years, nothing really was happening during the ruling of Mike. So one thing that I always talk about, we knew exactly after the Ivany report, what do we need? We need more people. But guess what? We failed to build the houses. How is possible 40 years ago that somebody was pinpointing and saying, let's do this, and we really didn't do anything about it? So on the top, I do coach soccer. I seen the game, 167,000 people in Maracana Stadium in Rio, and I lived in 10 different countries. I speak 4 different languages. Thank you.
Thank you. And Pam?
Thank you so Hello? Oh, that's much better. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Pam Lovelace. I'm a counselor for Hammond Plains St. Margaret's. I see a couple of constituents here. I love to see District 13 represented here in this room. I also want to say how grateful I am to all of the organizers and the students in particular, and to St. Mary's University for opening up this space for this conversation. I'm a candidate that's much different than the others. I'm someone who grew up starting work at the age of 13. I moved out of home and quit school at the age of 16. I've worked really hard all of my life to make change because I am a change maker, and I'm someone who believes in the future, in a progressive future where everyone has the right to live safely, to live comfortably, and to feel like they belong in our community. So I'm running for mayor because I think it's time that we change the course to make sure that no one is left behind, and to ensure that we're thinking about building our capital region for the next 50 years, not for the next couple. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're not allowing interruptions from the audience at this point. Waye, thank you.
Thank you very much. So hi, everybody. My name's Waye Mason. Fun fact about me, I actually went to St. Mary's, graduated in 2016. HRM needs a mayor you can trust, a mayor who will build housing, make your life more affordable, and who will fix transit. We need a mayor who can deliver those solutions on day one. We need a mayor who understands the difference between the tax bill and the tax rate, who understands the solutions that are required to house the people who are currently unhoused. We need to make sure that we have a mayor who's nonpartisan and can build coalitions regardless of party affiliation. I was self-employed for 20 years. I ran my own business. As I said, I have an MBA from St. Mary's. I taught at NSCC for 5 years, and I have 12 years of making and delivering on my promises as a counselor in HRM. I look forward to your support to be mayor on day one. Thank you.
Thank you, Waye. So at this point, we will get started with the questions. Again, I will ask them. We will proceed along the line again by last name. And I'll be trying to take POIs from different people. So if I see you, yeah, we're doing it this way, and it's your choice whether or not to take the speaker. So the question is, many of our city's residents face daily challenges while navigating the city with public transportation. What would your approach be to accessible, reliable, and affordable public transportation for everyone? So starting with Andy.
It's an excellent question, and thank you very much for it. Look, it's gotten way too hard to move around our community these days. The congestion is worse than we've ever seen it before. The delays in the transit system are worse than we've seen before. Buses, if running at all, are tending to be late. Ferries are being canceled. There's a challenge with keeping a full staff complement at Metro Transit, and we've all suffered from the confusion and frustration of being stopped in bumper-to-bumper traffic in the middle of the day next to a lane closure or an intersection closure that's happening as a result of road work or curb repair or pothole filling. So there are answers, short-term and long-term, to all of these things that can help people to move around the city. And the crux of it really is a high-functioning transit system. And I want to come to that in some detail in a moment. But I want to talk for a moment about the road work thing, because that's very front of mind for a lot of us right now in September, when the city got so congested so suddenly. There's no reason why all this road work has to happen during the daytime when people are trying to get to class or to work. People are losing their jobs because they're missing shifts. Commerce is grinding to a halt, bringing the city to its knees. This work can be done at evenings and weekends. And in conversation with the road building industry, they're also very interested in stretching their season, starting earlier in the spring, finishing later in the fall. And this allows them to manage their workforce more effectively, keeping their employees engaged, and ultimately delivering a lower cost service to HRM. So this is something that HRM can do right away to aid in congestion. But let's come back to transit. The real solution to our growing city here is that the congestion that we experience in it, is to get a transit system that's really working. So in the short term, we have to use data better, real-time GPS data, so that people know not just when their bus is supposed to be at their bus stop nearby, but when it's actually going to be there. That same data can be used to identify where routes in the city are slowing down, and Halifax Transit can deploy additional resources or change light signalizations or otherwise divert traffic to keep those buses, which are high priority, moving on their way. The longer term play, though, is we have to acknowledge that the way that our city has grown so rapidly, the population increase, the dispersal of where we live and work, and the complicated geography that pattern inhabits, means that the ability for our traditional bus-based system to serve our needs has really tapped out. We've maxed that out, and we need to move urgently to the next order of transit. And that's going to have to be bus rapid transit. And bus rapid transit is a series of high speed, high capacity, efficient, usually longer distance runs of buses that are running an independent, separated rights of way, bringing commuters in from Hubbards or Enfield or Porter's Lake, wherever it might be, in a comfortable high back chair that with maybe a pull down tray in front of you to put your laptop on, enjoy your coffee, get some work done on the way in. This is an entirely different kind of transit than we're accustomed to here, and that's really where the future lies. I think our future also includes understanding how we can use the harbor and the Northwest Arm better for ferries of all sizes and capacities. When we look at cities like Toronto or Boston or Vancouver, we see a very busy harbor and waterway with water commuter craft of all different kinds and sizes, public and private, all running to help people to move in ways that don't involve private automobiles. So these are the challenges that we have before us, and of course, wrapped in all of that, these solutions that we will bring must always include ways for people with different accessibility possibilities to be on buses, to be getting onto the ferries. Accessible transit is not functioning well right now. The Accessibus system is struggling and can be better. And the go forward from now after this election has to be in a way that we move people and goods around our municipality in a way that works for them, and in a way that the municipality can afford, and in a way that makes sure the growth that we're experiencing is working for all Haligonians and not against any of us. Thank you.
So then we can go to Jim.
Thank you. On the transit question, it's going to take at least 10 years, in my opinion, to get something really that's better than what we have now. Now, I'm sitting in a university setting with a lot of students here, and I know how transit really affects them and our seniors as well. So, yeah, we have the ferry system that's coming on board, millions of dollars. I hope it works. There's about 4 or 5 ferries as far as transportation on the water goes. But getting from university, from your rooming house downtown to the bars and whatever, if you're living in Halifax in particular, in Dartmouth, you're going to need a fast transit system. I live in Spryfield right now, and it takes me 1 hour and 40 minutes to take a bus in. I ride the bus every summer. And when Andy's correct when he says you need that fast. Well, we already got some fast, I'll tell you. Anybody been on a bus lately? I mean, they're breaking, it's like 60 miles an hour sometimes to meet their next stop. That's uncalled for, and it's very dangerous. We need more buses. We need more staff. I know that's the old equation, but it's true. We have a lot of breakdowns with our buses. They're old. We have the diesel engines. We need something to do for Mother Climate. Well, okay, we have electric buses coming on. I would have preferred hybrid buses to come first. I drive a hybrid myself, and it's a great way to help the climate. And the other thing is the fares for students. And maybe the counselors could correct me. I think there's free under 12. I'm not quite sure, but I think it is. Why should it just be under 12? I mean, we have to help with inflation. We have to help students, especially if they're going to use transit. So the city can certainly, hopefully, do something for students, even if it's for a month at a time or something, but do something to help them with their transit fares. Yeah, and like I said, it's going to take 10 years. So when you're planning our roads, there's nobody on this stage that knows Halifax and Dartmouth this better than me. I've not only walked the beat, I've driven around every alley, every street you can think of. And I know what those roads are. They were built in the 1800s. We have 2 narrow roads. They're not wide. and they're hilly. We're not living in Manitoba somewhere where they're nice and flat. Councils over the past, including this one, have decided they're going to squeeze those roads together with bicycle lanes, more than they need right now, as far as I'm concerned, and with buses. And guess what? They're going to have cars that are going to come down there. They're going to have trucks that come down there to make deliveries to all the small businesses downtown, to all the bars downtown. They're changing streets, making them one way. I'm not so sure that's a good idea. We have container traffic that comes from the pier and goes north. Our streets are too small, so we have to invest the money. We'll get it somehow from the feds maybe, and widen our streets. It's no good to have beautiful buses if you're going to be on those narrow roads. It's just not working right now. And if I asked everybody here, is the transit system working for you? You're probably going to say no. That's my take on that.
All right, Zoran.
Whew. This is the one I kept hearing last 20 years, and nothing has changed. So I live in Fall River, and just today it took me an hour 47 minutes to come to this building. I remember the days when we used to do it in 20, 30 minutes because, again, I consider 3 o'clock, it's not rush hour, or actually 2:15 when I left my home. So we kept hearing, this is how it is. We recognize there are difficulties, but I don't think so that everybody really understand what is the real issue and how we can actually improve it. So the first thing, 1972, the Ashwell compound was developed. Nothing has changed since 1972. Guess what? We do have potholes. How many of you, had issue with a tire or, certain parts on your car? So we do have smart people. We have universities. Let's create some projects, some research. Let's kind of get them something so they can actually develop the compound that's same used in Austria and the Alps. If you drive that road, it's beautiful, okay? So we can do that, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing, if you look at Halifax downtown, as Jim was saying, I know the city very good. You might know every single street, but guess what? Look at where the garages are placed. The garages are placed always close to intersection. That is the first thing that nobody ever should approve. Okay, why? Because that creates havoc in the traffic. Okay, another thing, we have talks about ferry. That ferry service, I've been hearing that since 2016, I think the first time I heard. You know what? Nothing ever happened. So it's the same thing, same old, same old. So I want to ask everybody here to just for 1 second to think about all the politicians that we have in terms of transportation. They're all playing the rocking horse. What does it mean? The rocking horse, there's emotion, but there's no progression. So it's time for somebody who's going to be a new leader, somebody who is going to be racehorse. We need progression. So stop thinking about, we can do this, we can do that. So another thing, if you really want to go and attract people to stay in this city and come to this city, the first thing we need to do, we have to start thinking about railroad. We have to start thinking, other ways how to do it. And what we do have it goes all the way from Windsor Junction. I said, well, it's too expensive. So now I kind of look at analysis, $650,000 to get new electric buses. They can't climb in any hill. Okay, Jim said it, hybrid. Okay, but also at the same time, what's kind of funny part? They said, well, we're going to spend on railroad around 1.2 billion. So what? We do have another 30 years. We need to attract people. We need to attract doctors. Okay, we need to attract people to be happy here. Okay, I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you so much. Great conversation. Transit is extremely important to our city, to our capital region, and to our province. I was appointed by Halifax Council to sit on the Canadian Urban Transit Association Management Board. So I've had the opportunity to meet with politicians and management of transit systems across the country. We are no different here in Halifax than any other transit system. We are all struggling for staff. We are all struggling with safety issues, and we are all struggling to grow faster because our population across the country is growing. But one thing that we can all agree on is that transit needs to be development oriented. We have to be developing where the transit actually exists, because putting transit in after the fact costs a lot of money. Here we are building bus rapid transit after the fact that we've upzoned through the Housing Accelerator Fund and trying to figure out how do we widen these roads faster. But we have to do it, because in order to reduce the congestion, we need to have bus lanes that are dedicated to bus lanes. We need to ensure that buses can move unimpeded from the congestion. But while we're doing all that work, we've forgotten about the fact that thousands of people are coming into the municipality from outside every single day to work in Burnside, to work at the universities, to work at the hospitals. And all of those folks have no other choice. And now we have East Hants, which is set to grow by 70% in the next few years. And they are trying to figure out how to grow their own transit system. So I am the candidate here that is not status quo. I'm the candidate of change. And I'm suggesting we start breaking down the silos, work better together with the neighboring municipalities and the provincial government, because the province does not currently fund transit operations. They fund capital investments. And that's why we're moving forward with fast ferries in the harbor. That's why we're moving forward with electric buses. The federal government and the provincial government recognize that we have to green our economy. And by doing so, that means looking inward and ensuring that we have a means within HRM to grow, to have the transit operations, but also to make sure that we have the people who can do that job at the machine shop, and that we work with NSCC and other trade schools to ensure that we have those operators and mechanics. But if we do not consider that light rail is in our future, we'll never get there. And so I believe that if we are going to double our population by 2060, it is time now to start planning for light rail so that we can connect the municipality with the rest of the province and ensure that the hub of the airport is actually a space where people can easily get downtown, they can get through to Moncton, they can also ensure that from a tourism perspective, that we're growing up that economic and local economies to provide for communities that can become resilient. We have far too many communities right now that are struggling because they don't have the ability to grow business, because they do not have employees who can access them, and they also don't have the ability to get customers. So if we're not supporting that really, really important economic development tool, which is public transit, and we're not investing in the growth of public transit, then we won't be able to grow our economy. And if we don't grow our economy, we'll continue to be in this place where we've got low job employment for young people between the ages of 18 to 25, and they will continue to leave our province. So it's time for us to get to work. Just in the same way we invest in public health and build new hospitals, it's time for us to build light rail and to consider what that looks like in the future, working with our partners at all levels of government, and also making sure that we build up our local economies at the same time. Thank you. Oh, do I have another minute? Sorry. This is great. This is a new system. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Sydney. The other thing about transit is the accessibility for individuals who are experiencing disability or who have illness and need to get to the hospital for dialysis, for example. I'm so disappointed in Accessibus and its inability to actually grow. And that's why I am proposing that we dismantle Halifax Transit and create a Capital Region Transportation Commission with the provincial government and look at the work that we're already doing with the Joint Regional Transportation Agency to think bigger and to break down those silos so that we can all invest in public transit to move people affordably out of their single-use vehicles or single-occupancy vehicles and actually provide them with an affordable and comfortable option. Because right now, transit is not doing it because we are not connected to the suburban areas, we're not connected to the rural areas, and we need to grow this capital region. Thank you.
Thank you. And Waye.
Thanks. So there we go. Thanks so much.
No.
Yeah, I think so. Check, check. There you go. We'll turn that off. Start again. Thank you. So I walk, I bike, I drive, I take the bus. I take the bus probably 10 times a week, and I see the issues firsthand. I get it. It's bad. I've been the guy at Scotia Square when you've waited 20 minutes for the bus, the number one, to come. And when it finally comes, there's three of them, nose to tail. And the reason that they come at the same time is because they're stuck in traffic with all the cars, right? Because they're coming across the bridge from Dartmouth. And I'll talk about the kind of solutions we can have there. But I know transit is more and more important, especially for young people. I literally see people in the audience whose parents fought to get them the bus pass when we were doing the pilot for the school program at the high school and junior high level. And my own adult kids don't own cars. One of them refuses to get a driver's license because of climate issues, right? So the bus system, when it lets them down, it really lets them down. And traffic is really bad in Halifax now. We have big city traffic, but we don't have big city infrastructure. We've grown a tremendous amount the last 10 years. We've grown by 20%. We need to level up our game. But the good news is that there are solutions that we've been working on and that have started to be implemented. The biggest section of my platform, which you can find on masonformayor.ca, the biggest single section is citizen-centered affordable transportation. And we have so much to do in there. That's why the section is so long. We are well prepared to make those changes in that transformation. We have a rapid transit plan, which talks about buses and fast ferries. It's something that we have in place, ready to fund. And we got the initial funding for the first fast ferries from the federal government and the province in the last year. We have our active transportation plan, integrated mobility, traffic safety. We need to speed up deployment of these plans, these solutions. Oh, Jim.
Wait,
Jim.
I've got a question for you. With 12 years under your belt, your day one, if you get mayor, you start with day one, but your day one was started 12 years ago.
Yes.
How come it still takes me an hour and 40 minutes to get to Spryfield? And the same with
Thank you.
Well, so I would say to you that you're talking about today's problems that didn't exist 12 years ago. The problems 12 years ago were that the population actually shrank, that the center of business was moving to Moncton, that kids were moving to, that there was a vibe that the kids are going to have to move to Alberta for a job. We've changed that. We turned that around, and I'm proud of that. And we've made investments in the transit system. But now that we have this extraordinary growth, we've grown 60,000 people in the last 3 years. That is different than we've ever seen before. And now we need to rise to that occasion, which is why we have these plans that are ready to put into the ground. To talk about specific things that we can do immediately, though, to ease congestion, right now we have a bus system that's stuck in traffic with the cars, and that's unacceptable. So we do need to make an investment in the traffic operations center to make sure that we are monitoring road conditions and adjusting the operations of the light signals in real time so that traffic and buses flow faster. But more important, we need to make changes in the short term and the long term. 247 service on a couple of corridor routes so people can get home from downtown, or they can get to their shift in the morning at the airport airport would be one of them, but especially at the hospitals, at the universities, and at the docks. Senior off-peak bus pass is something that I'm proposing, but also to continue with the expanded high school and junior high school bus pass that we brought in. Go ahead. Well, actually, if this is my time, I'm going to wave you down because I only have a minute left. Bus rapid transit is the critical piece here. We have that plan in place. We are glad the feds have started funding our plan. I want to see that plan through. Bus rapid transit is like light rail in the city, but on rubber wheels. That's our fastest thing to get into the ground. It'll take 3 or 4 years to get it built out. All the other options are far more expensive and will take longer. And while we need to look to light rail in the future, bus rapid transit is the thing we need right now to address our concerns. And of course, we can't forget rural Halifax and Accessibus. Rural Halifax needs significant investment in point-to-point transit, and we need to finish the transformation of Accessibus that was started 5 years ago and then kind of stalled during COVID. We need to get the energy back into that project and make sure we deliver on the promise we made to the disabled community. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's been a request that we alternate the beginning speakers. So Zoran, I would start with you if that's all right, and then I'd start with Waye next. Well, you can turn it down. So the question is, and again, these are from our students. Crime rates in our city have been rising, and residents are concerned. What would your approach be to reduce crime, and how would you ensure that whatever you propose is not only effective but also equitable, particularly when considering crime done to marginalized populations?
Okay, that's a tough question. So I'll just put a little bit in front of everybody that could understand. So I work as a business consultant, an IT consultant, and my job a lot of times takes me across Canada, United States, and some part of the world. So in 2019, just before the COVID, actually, I was delivering some project for Valvoline Oil, and I actually experienced to work and live 30 to 45 days in 10 most dangerous city in Canada. So thankfully, one is only close to us. It was number 7, Moncton. The rest of them, Chilliwack, Kamloops, Prairies, and all the places they're normally out west. So when I look at first demographics and growth of our population, one thing that me as an immigrant who came 30 years ago here, one thing that nobody ever done it in a municipality, never explained to us newcomers, what are the rules of the game here, how people live here, what they're all about, what they like, what they dislike, okay? So now the floodgate open, and now we're kind of trying to say, oh my God, like what's going on? We do have a crime, that happens down on Argyle Street, in the middle of the night, a couple, 2 girls, basically they got attacked. Now, I work with most of the businesses on POS systems, and they're saying, if you are conducting business in downtown Halifax, we have to close the door because the people are always going to come in and, and steal something. So text me before you come in the store. So those are the things that didn't happen. So I strongly believe that education program is failing. We can actually go and say, give us more police officers. That's not going to change anything. And when you think about it, why people are stealing, let's kind of go deeper down as from a psychology perspective. So I hear all the time saying like, we have a tents, we have encampments. No, we don't have tents, we don't have encampments, we have people. So that's what we need to discuss, that's what we need to do. So I'm not saying some of those people are, thieves, but what I'm trying to say is education is a key. So we have to educate every single person that comes here, that want to live here, that want to put the roots here and bring the family and, and do whatever it takes. We have to educate them. Another thing is, I've been adult educators for 22 years. And when I look at the businesses in Canada, especially the government side of the businesses in Canada, we invest in our workers around $2,257 a year. If you compare that to United States, they invest around $21,450. It's a big gap, okay? Another thing is, why would they invest in people? Because people can move forward. People can afford things that they don't have to steal, okay? Another thing, I was just on vacation last July in a little tiny town called Molfetta, down and, all the way down in Italy, the tip of the heel of Italy. And, I was fascinated by their mayor. You know what he did? He said, yes, Lay's chips is going to be $10, but tomato, potato, cheese, everything is going to be 60 to 99 cents. How would he end up doing that? Subsidizing local farms. When you look at Halifax region and municipality, we have to kind of go check the Muscodobi Harbor. When you look at the number of farms there's tons of them. But you know what? They produce the food, they try to kind of put on the market, and people normally will go to big box stores. Some of the politicians here, they supported big box stores, okay? And then they basically said, well, wait a second, that's not how it is. We support small business. If anybody supports small business, that's me. So I understand their pain. I understand what's going on. And you know what? Don't give up. Educate every single person, but help them out on the way. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pam.
Thank you for this question. HRM has done an incredible job with public safety. We set up a community safety division in 2023. We've also recognized that citizen-led response is extremely important. So investing in citizens and social workers to be able to respond to mental health calls, be able to respond to issues is so important to be able to look at the defunding report that HRM has supported and find a way that HRM can work with all stakeholders and address the issues in our communities. Yes? Oh, I have two hands. Two hands. I'll take one. Zoran?
Thank you. So, as you said, mental health. And, I do have issue with mental health, PTSD, war prisoner.
Make sure it's a question.
So now I'm just kind of trying to say what that has to do with safety.
So we have police officers that are called to mental health crises, either by a neighbor, a family member, and those police respond. I was with a police officer one night doing a ride-along when they responded to a potential suicide with a 9-year-old child. That's why police officers are responding. However, HRM is moving forward to have a citizen-led response through our community safety division and ensuring that we are sending the right person to the call. Now, from a public safety perspective, we know that we have serious issues, as was raised, with gender-based violence. The Premier has, and the province of Nova Scotia has said, we are faced with an epidemic with gender-based violence. In addition to that, we know that we are the national capital for human trafficking. And we have a former member of parliament here that actually voted against strengthening the criminal code to address human trafficking. We also know that through the hate crimes unit at HRM and RCMP that we are working better together to address those, but we need stronger hate crimes. And as mayor, I will be working very closely with the Department of Justice and the Minister of Justice to find a way to strengthen those hate crimes legislation to ensure that people know, not only just in the general public, but in schools, because violence in schools, that is increasing so much so that just today, a child at the age of 14 pleaded guilty to stabbing another child. This violence has to end. And we need a politician who is committed to seeing this violence end. And we need to create a culture of care where people actually recognize kindness is what we need. People who are stealing are impoverished. People who are stealing are dealing with food insecurity. They're dealing with struggling under this affordability crisis and a lack of support, a lack of disability payments, a lack of income assistance, a lack of help for medical care. These are the realities that people are living with. Now, I'm not excusing any crime that anyone does, but there is a source of crime. And that's what we need to get at. It's not about punishing people. It's about finding out how do we actually help them so we prevent the crime in the first place. And for too long, governments have taken the position that it's all about punishment and corrections rather than prevention. And I believe that as a municipality with half the population of the province, that it's time that we step up and do what we can to support police, to create citizen-led response teams, and ensure that the public has the tools and the resources they need to be able to respond more appropriately to friends and neighbors and family members who are struggling. For the first time in the history of Nova Scotia, we now have an addictions and mental health division at the province because the province has recognized that that is a significant issue to holding people back to realizing their potential. And addictions is something that's it's crippling families, it's crippling people, and it's killing people. And we need to recognize that 4 days in detox is not enough. We need more supports to help people get the support that we need. The other thing I think is really important about public safety, though, is about raising a generation of young people who have things to do, who have ways to engage and invest in their community through recreation, through sports, through community organizations, through volunteering. Our schools could do a better job in ensuring that young people are more engaged, because when people are engaged, they care about their community, they take care of one another, and they don't vandalize and they don't steal because they love living where they live. Thank you.
Thank you. And Waye.
Thank you. Thank you. Still not working. Hello. We had the same problem in Cole Harbour last night. One of the mics wouldn't stay on. It's all good. We're also unused to having 5 minutes to speak because like yesterday, some of the answers were 1 minute. Let's go. We'll go. 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity today. Public safety is paramount. Without public safety, businesses impacted, people don't feel safe in their neighborhoods. It adds to a cycle of insecurity that can add to a cycle of violence and criminality. People deserve to feel safe in their homes. And post-COVID, we've seen significant increase in violent and nonviolent crime in Halifax and across the country. The opioid crisis, which was something that was lapping at our shores but had not quite gotten here to the same degree we've seen in other cities in the rest of Canada, has really arrived in the last 4 years. And of course, there's the economic piece that the other candidates have talked about, right? When people are insecure, when food and fuel cost more, when interest and inflation have gone through the roof, when there is a national housing crisis, it's hard for people to get by right now. People are struggling, and that's important. Now, I also went on a ride along about 9 months ago, and just to really drive home the point Pam made, it's important to understand that like 95% of what we did, well, almost everything, the only thing that was criminal is we were driving down Argyle Street and somebody didn't want to pay for his cab. Jim, go ahead.
This is not a sarcastic comment.
7 seconds.
Because my time's coming. How long was your ride along? 2 hours?
I was out with the constable for 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours. I did 36 years.
That's
Go ahead.
That's not really a question, Jim. So, okay. So getting back to the point, so the one crime was someone didn't want to pay for a cab. Everything else was social work. Why are police, expensive police, armed and trained police, going out and doing social work? So we need to address that, and there's ways to do that within our mandate as the first responders. Municipalities aren't the health system. We're not community services, but we are the first responders. So we need to have this public safety lens on everything we do, recognizing that, shoplifting and customers feeling safe on Spring Garden Road is also a priority. So to get police back on the streets and on patrol, to get beat cops back in our commercial core, what we've proposed is the civilian-led response teams, an alternative to police. And also I'm proposing to have 247 bylaw on. Right now, it's police after 5 o'clock doing a parking ticket. It's police after 5 o'clock or on weekends doing a noise complaint. And there's a whole bunch of other pieces in there, like police sitting for hours, 10, 12, 16 hours at a hospital to do a mental health admit, takes them off the road, takes them out of the beat, and means that they're there where there should either be a hot hand off to the healthcare system, or if we can't do that, we can have a compliance officer who's trained in mental health there to take over that, the waiting for the admission, freeing up an officer to get back on the road. You don't pay teachers in a school to change a light bulb. You have people who are trained to do different things for different tasks. Police are doing too many things right now. So it's not about, to me, what we've seen with the detasking report and all the other reports, the Wortley report, the commission on the Portapique massacre, and all of that deep work that's happening right now is police, including their unions, want to be detasked and refocused on their main job, and they want to see other supports, which is why in my platform, I talk about the funding the civilian-led response team, which is a model for mental health, addiction, and housing and homeless folks, sending people who are nurses, who are social workers and bylaw officers to respond to those calls rather than taking important police resources to go to that. We are not alone in this. Cities in the west coast of the United States have been doing it for a while, but Toronto recently launched their mental health response team. They refer to it as the fourth emergency response arm. It's something they're very proud of, and I think that's a model that we need to follow. I already talked about how the 247 bylaw response would free up tremendous amount of resources from less critical tasks, and there's an argument there both for, if I may, on the left and the right. One is you're not sending police to these sensitive responses, but it also saves a lot of money. The police are actually one of our most expensive staff that you're going to deploy. A bylaw officer or a nurse is going to actually cost less money to do the same job. And then, of course, I want to end by saying communities, African Nova Scotian especially, but communities in HRM have been waiting for decades for meaningful change in how we're policed, going back to the Driving While Black report 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so it's really important that we restore trust in policing by completing police reform, which is something those communities have been waiting for far too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy.
Thanks very much. It really is a question about public safety. And when I have been speaking with members of our community over the years and over the course of this summer and this campaign, and the topic of public safety is raised, it's often in the context of people feeling that when they raise the concern with their counselor or with City Hall, that their concerns aren't being heard or aren't being taken seriously. I think we have to, I want to acknowledge the part of your question that deals with marginalized communities. I think we have to begin by acknowledging the very long and troubled history that we have in Halifax with systemic racism. It goes back a very long way, and it has persisted into the current era in the form of street checks, which I believe now have been, I hope have been effectively addressed. I think we all of us have more work to do in the realm of systemic racism. But this also touches on the point of disproportionate representation in the justice system of marginalized communities, particularly African, Nova Scotian, and Indigenous communities in Nova Scotia. And before we even we should even get to the part about talking about crime and how we deal with it, we do need to get to the root causes of criminality and what the conditions in people's lives are that are leading them to choose the desperate actions that they feel that they're being forced to take. Now, here in Halifax, we have an extremely talented police force. The HRP is comprised of dedicated, well-trained, very well-intentioned people who have chosen a career, who have worked hard to become peace officers, and who want to do a good job of upholding peace, law, and good government in our city. To do that, they need the tools that they're asking for and that they require. Zoran brought up the unthinkable attack of the two women on Argyle Street earlier this year, and one of the disappointing, it's hard to say which one was the most disappointing, but one of the disappointing factors in that crime beyond the violence itself was that there was CCTV closed circuit television footage available from an adjacent privately owned camera. But because of privacy of information, et cetera, I can't claim I know the details for the holdup, but that's my best guess. But this footage was not made available for some time, days later, while the family, whom I had many conversations with, were dangling, not knowing whether or not justice would be served. So making the role of CCTV cameras is going to be increasingly important. Another piece of equipment that the police are very keen on having, and that justice advocates are keen on having, are body cams. For officers. Body cams keep everybody safe. They keep the officers safe. They keep community members safe. The presence of the body cam just brings the heat down in any situation, knowing that everything is being recorded and can be referred back to. It was made mention that, when we deploy police officers for, sorry, was that a yellow? Did you just hold up a yellow?
That's
okay, thank you. When we deploy officers for a wellness check, do we really need two, armed, uniformed police officers appearing at a door at a situation that's already hot and could tip off at any second? Isn't it better to send a mental health professional there to knock on the door first? And that is certainly something that I know the HRP is working on doing. There's a small division with HRP that provides this service now. Needs to grow, is what I'm told by officers. So there's that as well. Public safety also has to do with emergency response, and we saw recently from the Auditor General's report that HRM got a bit of a slap on the wrist for not having a good emergency response plan for last year's wildfires and other disasters. It found that the first responders are very well trained, often well equipped, but they were lacking a good plan to plug into so that they could have clear communications and effectively deploy their training. So this is something that we need to do better, and will do better with a better emergency response plan. And finally, human trafficking came up. Councillor Lovelace mentioned a deeply flawed Opposition Day motion, which I voted against, but she failed to mention the government motion that was crafted with victims and victim advocates that was much more effective and is actually helping people today. Thank you.
All right. Jim.
Well, thank you for asking that question. Ever since I've been on these debates, I have never once heard any moderator mention public safety. So thank you very much. Now, 4 hours, 2 hours, whatever respectively those counselors took in a police car isn't worth what it says. You do not see policing in 4 hours. Now, let's take it one step further. Police work is always changing. I did 36 years in policing. My father did 33. I was a detective. I was a crisis negotiator, hostage negotiator. I negotiated 2 doctors that were holding, or I'm sorry, 2 doctors were being held by a person who had some mental issues for 12 hours on my stomach talking to him. There's a wide diverse of skill, like Andy said, in policing. So I'm not debating the fact whether we should stick to the old traditional ways of policing. But one thing that is true, police service is the 24-hour service that is always there for you. So you can change all you want. I'm dead against the attitude that this council has taken on the defunding report. I'm dead against it. We don't have enough time to discuss it. But if anything's going to diminish policing services in this city, it's that defunding report. I've read that thing 100 times. I presented myself to the Board of Police Commissioners in November, who are the oversight body for us. They oversight policing, not the mayor, not council, the Board of Police Commissioner. And they shouldn't have politicians on that board. They should have some of you, more of a diverse group of people that are being the oversight. So what I'm trying to get at is there's all kinds of crimes now that are increasing. Pornography with children's gone sky high. Why? Because of the net. Okay? Very dangerous situation. Not enough police resources are being applied to it. Domestic abuse has just gone right through the roof when it comes to policing. You can, now I'm an expert, I guess, I retired now, but I was an expert in negotiating crisis intervention, hostage and what have you. I've gone to many calls for service when somebody's in mental distress. You cannot take the police out of this. They want to, at least in the beginning. And what they're suggesting is that they would send a mental health unit composed of civilians and perhaps a police officer with them. But here's the fact of life. 24 hours service. A mother calls at 2 in the morning. My daughters came from a dance. She's loaded drunk. She's tearing the room apart. Oh my God, she's going to kill herself. Her boyfriend left her. Who's going to respond to that call? A police officer will, because we're 24 hours. I'll use that term, we, if you don't mind. We have to go there first to see what the situation is and then call the resource in, then call the mental health. But we have to go there initially, not only for officer safety, for the sake of that child and everybody else. You can't take police out of it. They've taken the police out of the homeless. Big mistake. This council did that. You cannot take and make us the enemy of the homeless. It's my #1 issue as a future mayor. Am I up?
You've got a challenge.
Oh, go ahead.
Jim, so can you tell us?
Use the mic.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Jim, can you tell us how many police officers they're struggling with
We're
mental health? Give us
actually
a
out of time,
rough
I'm
number.
afraid.
Thank you for your service.
There was 140 off sick
We're out of
last year.
time. Thank you. Oh, no, sorry, that was just for the question. Oh, no. Okay, go ahead. My mistake.
Please, Jim, go ahead.
So yeah,
Okay,
if
there
you'd
was
like to answer the
140
question.
there was 140 roughly police officers off sick time. I tried to find out why. Rightfully so, it's none of my business. But running for mayor, I would have liked to know why these people are off. But it's PTSD and stuff like that, okay? They're very short now. You're lucky to get a police car. So we've got to do something about that. But that defunding report and also taking the police out of the homeless is the biggest mistake they ever made. I want to be friends to the homeless. I've talked to the homeless. I want police. I got a crime prevention award from Ottawa for crime prevention. That's what we need. You don't want the police to try to help the homeless while they're scared to death of this because the city council took them away from it. And that was the biggest mistake they ever made. We're their allies. We're not their enemies.
Okay. So for the final round of questions, this is our last one. I'll be starting with Waye, if that's all right. Okay. So this is so it's come up a couple of times. So As a tri-level policy issue, one of the core contributors to low housing stock remains zoning regulations, which fall under municipal purview. Do you think political pressure on other levels of government are impactful and necessary? And if it is necessary, how would you go about it as mayor?
So, we are in a housing crisis. This is a real national housing crisis that's happening from coast to coast. We have encampments and people being cast out into the streets in cities from the West Coast to the north to here. And so having an all hands on deck national response to the housing crisis makes sense. I think I speak for all municipal people that we feel that the kind of Doug Ford approach of kind of stepping in and starting to provide ministerial zoning orders or special planning areas has been really unfortunate. The province certainly has the tools to be able to provide the municipality with a clear direction about the outcome they expect and the timeline that they expect for that to happen in. And then I think it would be preferable for them to do that rather than stepping right into the actual end result, because then we would still, just on a more constricted timeline, be allowed to do our democratic processes of consulting with people and talking to the communities and looking at all the different options to achieve that goal. But we are in a place right now where we need to plan to double the population of HRM. That's the speed with which the population's growing. There's lots of reasons for that, but we have made Halifax a very attractive place. The population of Canada is growing very quickly, and those are the cards we're dealt. We have those people coming. Mayor Savage is fond of talking about how the feds have the money, the province has the responsibility, and the municipalities have the problem. In the past, way back in the past, in the 70s and 80s, when we were still talking about the Just Society and Pierre Trudeau was the prime minister, we got a ton of money from the feds to build housing through our provinces. That's when all the housing was built, the social housing was built. And those programs largely went away in the early 90s. And to me, to bring back neighborhood improvement programs and direct funding to build more social housing in partnership with not-for-profits, cooperatives, and private sector operators, but longer and better than we're seeing with CMHC, that's something the feds can play a big role in. That's something that we are pushing for on a national level. Getting 10 or 20% below market rent in a neighborhood for 10 years and then it goes back to market, that isn't necessarily creating housing stability for low-income people. And I think we should be concerned about that. As far as the feds coming in with the Housing Accelerator Fund, which I think is the core of your question, while that was hard, we were able to run a public process. And it's funny, we talk about our relationships with different levels of government. And as I said at a different debate, the day we got the letter, I happened to be in Ottawa. I met with Andy on Wellington Street, right in front of the House of Commons. I talked to Darren Fisher on the phone. I got Minister Sean Fraser on the phone. We all talked about it. And we were able to, while truncated and quickly, run a public process that let us actually have public input. So we knew what people thought about it. That did also let us know, and I'll acknowledge that given some of the people in the room, that let us know that a lot of people were really unhappy with a lot of the changes that were proposed and came through. But I think that at the end of the day, what the federal government did made sense in that context, and they gave us the latitude to have a made in Halifax solution that didn't that we were allowed to respond to what we heard from the public and make changes to the plan that reflected what we heard from the public. I'll just close by saying, and I said this at a couple of debates, you never know what's going to happen next. You don't get to pick your dance partners in this game. I'm on my second prime minister. I'm about to be on my third prime minister. I'm on my fourth premier and my third provincial government. These things will continue to change. And you have to play the cards you're dealt. You have to take actions based on those conditions. And I believe, based on the experience of being mentored by Mike Savage and working for 12 years on the provincial, regional, and national level through Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Atlantic Mayors when I was deputy mayor, we are well positioned as a city to make sure that we're able to access money come the government change with the feds, to work with the province to make sure that we continue to do what we're seeing right now to build more housing. There's 500 units of deeply affordable that have been built in the last couple of months. There's 300 more coming by Christmas and 300 more coming after Christmas. This will make a huge dent in the number of people who are forced to live in tents because they have nowhere to live. And it's an example, and we're providing the maintenance as HRM, our staff under contract. So I've got 5 seconds left, so no. So we are, we are a partner who's working with the province every day to deliver those solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy.
Moderator, would you mind repeating? I missed the first part, just the first sentence or two. Repeat the question for me.
As a tri-level policy issue, one of the core contributors to low housing stock remain zoning regulations, which do fall under the municipal purview, but also the possibility of putting political pressure on other levels of government.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So the complexity of this problem can't be overstated. This is as Councillor Mason said, this is a crisis from coast to coast in Canada right now. And here in Nova Scotia, it's the kind of the result of a confluence of some unexpected occurrences. I will say that our rapid population growth, first of all, started because of the very hard work of a number of people over a long period of time to foment growth, to reverse the fortune of Nova Scotia and its capital city, so that we could attract investment and population again. People in the room will remember the days when downtown was dying and tumbleweeds were blowing down Barrington Street. A lot of people worked very hard at a big lift to turn all that around, and we wound up with a beautiful renaissance as a result. And then COVID made us a destination for people that were looking to live simpler lives with more space between themselves. But that time of growth also coincided with the inflation that came with COVID and the inflation that came with the illegal war in Ukraine, and it came with the rising interest rates and the inflation. So and all that happened on the heels of the successive provincial governments that had gotten out of the business of building affordable housing. So all these things kind of came to bear at one moment in time. I'm an optimist, and I really do believe that right now we're at the worst of it, and that it can only get better from here. We do have some tailwinds. We have all three orders of government stepping up in a much more impactful way than they have in the past. We've got interest rates falling, inflation is leveling out. The building industry is tooling up to be able to build things much, much faster. And here I want to come to your point. That's kind of a constant context setting. For sure, the municipality has very distinct policy levers that can be pulled, could have been pulled already, but haven't, to increase not just the rate at which homes are approved and built, but the cost of homes that are approved and built. And so those things are, in a quick nutshell, it's all on my platform at andyfillmore.ca, are to speed up substantially the approvals, the cost of applications and water hookup fees that are carried throughout an application and construction phase all gather interest and all go directly onto the rent or the mortgage of that home at the end of the construction period. So faster approvals reduces cost. HRM can make more low-cost land available for land development. The cost of land is a major vector in the cost of a housing unit. Approving low-cost land, much of which has been held up for about a decade in certain areas of HRM waiting approval, could also reduce substantially the cost of the rent or the mortgage at the end of construction. And the third thing is to remove HRM policy barriers to innovative construction techniques, allowing modular housing without full poured concrete foundations, allowing flat packed factory built houses that can be built in factories that could run 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week. But right now are only running a few shifts because the policy barriers are preventing customers for those homes. Those are things that HRM can do today and is in their own house to do. But the solving of this crisis must be done in close partnership and collaboration with the other two orders of government. It's the provincial government that has the levers for the subsidized housing program. That's the order of government that checks the T4 slips, that administers to make sure that your income is just 30% of your cost of housing is just 30% of your income. And of course, the federal government has brought us things like the Canada-Nova Scotia Housing Benefit, which is a rental supplement. It's brought the Rapid Housing Initiative, which is giving cash to municipalities like HRM to build hundreds and hundreds of affordable housing units here. We can't go it alone. We go further together. And I must say that it's not helpful to repeat that divisive canard that The feds have the money, the province has the jurisdiction, and the municipality has the problem. That is absolute nonsense. We're in this together, and every housing advocate in the city I talk to wishes that the council would stop repeating that divisive rhetoric. It does not help. We have to build partnerships. We must solve this crisis together, and each order of government has a role to play, as does the not-for-profit sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, thank you. The $79.98 million that the fund was given to us, Halifax, to, I thought, like many of you, oh, good, it's going to build homes. Well, most of that, no, I wouldn't say most of that money, but a large portion of that money is being dedicated to HRM for bureaucrats to fill out paperwork, like Andy said. There's a lot of it down there. And so a lot of that money I thought was going to be, there's 79.9, whatever it is, $million. Now we're going to build homes. Sorry. Not only that, I think it's 2 years, 2 or 3 years you have to utilize that money. If the council doesn't, whatever council, doesn't utilize that money, my understanding in reading that document is that they will draw back some of those funds. We don't even have a contingency fund at council that I know of to take care of that if that happens. If the labor market crashes, we need to get immigrants in here to have the plumbers, have the electricians, and what have you. Now there's talk about limiting that amount of immigration coming to Canada or even Halifax. So that's a problem. Yeah, they do interfere sometimes. But when it comes to the housing crisis, Andy's right. We have to have a real good middle of the ground relationship with the feds, because the feds have all the money. Province has some money and the municipality has some money. But if you don't have a good working relationship with all three factors coming together, then you're not going to get much done over the years. Now, I have one question. I'm going to close before my 5 minutes is up. This has been a big issue with me. I don't think it's antagonism. 400 families were pushed out of Ocean Breeze by this council, who approved to change the zoning laws in that particular neck of the woods. There was no need of it, but they decided to change it to allow the big developer to come in and build who knows how high, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 rents. Unacceptable. Where are the 1,200 families going? Can they tell me? Can you tell me where they're going? The councilors that approved it? Or do you want to say? Or do you know? I don't think you know. End of story.
Zoran.
I love this topic, and I love it. I'll quote Mayor Savage. He said, in order for somebody to become a mayor of HRM, you have to be CEO. Okay? So if you really look left and right, our existing politicians, I don't know if they had that feeling last 8 years in their belly, how next dollar will come. How are you going to pay your workers? How are you going to, take the people out of the poverty? So one thing that I always look, do the copycats. So if you look at Japan, for instance, they allowed overbuilding. Build, build, build. Lower the code down, build, build, build. That actually caused two positive changes. Number one, abundance of housing. Number two, inflation rate down. Again, if you really want to be in this position, you have to act as a CEO. Another thing that I hear from our politicians is always the same rhetoric. That is, well, everybody around Canada, everybody's struggling with this. So why Halifax cannot be the same? When are we going to wake up one day and say, Halifax is the best in something? Okay? When are we going to do that? When are we going to be a leader in something? Okay? So I'll give you a little bit background information. 2017, I lined up investor coming from Longview, Texas, halfway between Shreveport, Louisiana and Dallas. Came here, check it out, Shannon Park. Says, I can build here 1,300 modular homes. We tried to speak to the business community, government. Guess what happened? Nothing. Nothing. We say, well, that's not easy. That's hard. We have to wait for this. We have to wait for that. And then I said one day, okay, now, like, what are you proposing? Well, we're going to be proposing, small, tiny homes. Okay, so who's going to build them? Well, sorry, but we don't have enough builders. Okay, so that means it will never going to be built. So the key word here is one thing that absolutely I cannot stand listening. That is, Canada is the richest country's human resources. Period. Canada is the best countries in terms of abundance of the space. But yet again, we don't live up to that potential. Why? Just think for a second why we don't. Now, when we talk about how we're going to approach homelessness, let me tell you something as well. I've been trying last 6 months to organize homeless people to represent Canada in the World Cup, Soccer World Cup for homeless people. Okay? Why? Because homelessness means dignity. We have to give them dignity back. That's the first thing we have to do. How I know that? I worked in war-torn countries. I delivered humanitarian aid the worst time in Rwanda, Chechnya. I negotiated actually the war to stop for 24 hours so they can get food in. So all of this mumbo jumbo that I hear, you have negotiation power. Why? Because Halifax is a great place to be. Sell it is a great place to be. Attract investors. Okay? Use existing people. That's the only way how we can do it and move forward. So again, I said, who is responsible for the numbers of homelessness? How many homeless people do we have? Try to guess. That number is not accurate at all. Absolutely not accurate at all. Why? Because the people they did it, they have no clue what they're talking about. Okay? And again, they hire the agencies. So again, similar what Waye was saying, what you have a teacher is not going to change a bulb. Now it's time for teachers to change the bulb because we need money. We need to support. And you know what? One of the biggest challenges is everybody's talking about low-class families. When you intercept people, guys, we intercept the people when they are lower middle class because they're only one step falling down the cracks. And if you don't do it, we're going to have a bigger problem. Okay? Now, I want to use my time for something else. It's a little outside. Nolan, could you please come over? Please.
I'm not sure we'll have time for this.
Okay, so in the back of the room, please wave. We do have Nolan Greenwood. He's 23, he's your age, a lot of students here, and he was gutsy enough to run for a mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And finally, Pam.
Thank you so much. Hey, Nolan, great to see you. You've done an incredible job inspiring people to run. And as the only woman on the ballot for mayor of 16 people, I have to say I'm really, really pleased with the number of young girls, women who have come up to me and said, thank you for being on the ballot. Thank you for being an example. It is courageous for all of us to be able to do this. And but let's get to the question. So federal government, provincial government, municipal government, there's one taxpayer. At the end of the day, there's one taxpayer, but we're all in silos. In order to break down the silos, we have to have better relationships. In order to have better relationships, we have to be respected. Obviously, the municipal government is a creature of the province. So we exist at the pleasure of the province. In the 1990s, the provincial government amalgamated 4 duly elected municipal councils into one Halifax Regional Municipality. Since that time, there's been a lot of growing pains, lots of inequity with regards to access to services, whether it's recreation, police, fire, access to the ability for, I have a question, 7 seconds.
Thank you. So, since we talked about
You need to use the mic. 5 seconds.
So,
right.
just one quick question. How much money we spend after we combine every county together?
Okay, so now we're going back to the 1994 decision of the provincial government. I'm not here to explain that, but I will say I do teach local government at Dalhousie University in the Career Development Department, and I teach people across the country who work in municipal government, and many of them are experiencing consolidation and amalgamation because of the fact that there's duplication of services. And so that was the case here, duplication of services. That being said, the inequity that resulted from a continued consideration of how do we get the downtown core built back up again so that it's strong in Dartmouth and in Halifax, and ensure that the suburban communities can grow as well. In the 1990s, early 2000s, it was clear we needed more infrastructure. We needed wastewater treatment. We needed to beef up and upgrade water treatment. We needed to ensure that we had the transportation means in place. That being said, fast forward 20, 24 years, here we are now saying the exact same thing, because what didn't we do? We didn't transform the tax structure. The tax structure that we currently have right now is based in the 1800s. 30% of our residential tax bills are going out the door of the province of Nova Scotia. As a board member of Nova Scotia Federation Municipalities over the past 3 years, I was pleased to be a part of renegotiating that tax structure with the province to remove provincial tax of corrections and obviously the provincial tax for the public housing debt off of the property tax bill. There were a couple of people, a few thousand, they saw maybe $10, $15 reduction in the property tax bill. But the next big number is that education area rate, because $200 million from HRM is going out the door to the province of Nova Scotia every year. And so in order to be able to work together better, to have shared goals, to have policies that actually work for all of those citizens that live and those who are going to be coming here, those who are going to be moving here. And again, the thread throughout my platform is thinking 50 years in advance, not just this 4 years, but the next generation, to make sure that we create a sustainable, resilient economy, communities where people are safe. That means we have to work with the provincial government and the federal government to think about what that tax reform means, and to ask the federal government to stop giving us money unless it's money that is made for our solutions. So what I mean by that is when the federal government provides HRM with Housing Accelerator Fund, for example, or bike lanes, for example, I requested after the wildfire in my community to have money that was in that infrastructure fund for bike lanes to go into a fund for egress, because for the last 50 years, subdivisions have been built with one way in and one way out. Really bad planning that has been going on and needs to be addressed. But if we're not creating shared goals, we're never going to get out of this status quo cycle. And so when I consider how we can work together better, I am recommending that we should establish or reestablish the Capital Infrastructure Commission, which is where the province, the federal government, the municipality, the utilities, everybody sits around a table and makes decisions about how and where we grow. Where are the investments actually going to go? What are the priorities? Instead of a political decision in Ottawa coming to us and saying, here, we want you to take this money for a Housing Accelerator Fund, beef up your planning department, and go and build more housing. That's not how you build a great capital region. And you got to remember, Nova Scotia is strong because HRM is strong, and HRM is strong because Nova Scotia is strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Were you going to close it out? So that's our panel for the day. So then Simba will come back up.
1, 2, 1, 2. So we've come to the end of this wonderful debate. Could we please just give everyone a round of applause for this? Once again, I want to also say some special thanks to the individuals that assisted in. I understand what was happening. It keeps on cutting off and on. Okay, I wanted to put out a special thanks to every single individual that assisted us in making this event possible. So firstly, the SMU Commerce Society, the SMU Debate Society, Sobey School of Business, and as well the SMUSA team. Thank you so much, folks. Now we've come to the end. We're still left with half an hour, actually an hour. So this gives you a chance to actually come down actually and talk to all the candidates. We have snacks that we have replenished at the back. We have some drinks as well. So feel free to mingle around, connect, network, and have a lovely evening. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. That was great. So good. Yeah, that was fun. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Great job. Great to have you here today. It's lovely to meet you. How are you? Great job today. Thank you.